So complete these notes, your sex-like notes, as we go through this. So up until this point, all of the traits that we have talked about are found on chromosome 1 through 22 in humans, meaning they are not related in any way to an individual's 23rd pair of chromosomes or their biological sex. So if we remember, here we have a karyotype. When I say chromosomes 1 through 22, I'm talking about the homologous pairs that you inherit. So one copy of each chromosome from mom, one copy of each chromosome from dad. Now, each of these homologous chromosomes contains the same genes in them, but aren't necessarily genetically identical. So dad might give you info for eye color that contains info to make blue, and mom might give you eye color info that gives info for brown. So it's still a gene for eye color, but different versions of it. 1 through 22 are referred to autosomes, so they are your body chromosomes. They are not related in any way to biological sex. The 23rd pair, this is what determines your biological sex. Remember, females inherit 2 copies of the X chromosome, and males inherit 1 copy of the X chromosome and 1 copy of the Y. When we talk about sex-linked traits, we're talking about these genes or these recipes to make a protein that are found on these X and Y chromosomes. Girls are going to have 2 alleles or 2 copies of any X-linked trait because they have 1 on each of their X chromosomes. Males are going to have 1 copy. This is what this is saying down here. Males are only going to have 1 copy of each allele or each gene on any X-linked trait because they only possess 1 X chromosome. Their Y chromosome will not contain genes that are found only on the X chromosome, just like the Y chromosome does not contain genes found, the X chromosome does not contain genes found on the Y chromosome. The Y chromosome does have genes on it, but it has very few genes on it, which means the focus of our study is going to be on genes that are found on your X chromosome. Now, the fact that males only possess a single X chromosome is going to explain why, if we have a mutation or a disease that's associated with a mutation of a gene found on the X chromosome, males are more likely to inherit this condition than females, because females have 2 copies of any X-linked genes. So if they inherit a mutated copy, another parent is still going to give them the copy of the same gene. So for a female to show an X-linked disease, she would have to inherit 2 mutated copies. Males only need to inherit 1 mutated copy from their mother in order to show an X-linked condition. If we remember down here on our chromosomes, remember that inside the egg during oogenesis, mom only gives out X's in all of her eggs. It is what we find for males in the sperm that's going to determine the biological sex of the child. So if there's an X inside the sperm, it combines with the X inside the egg to give us a female. If there's a Y inside the sperm, it combines with the X inside the female to give us a male. Examples of conditions associated with X-linked traits. So it's important to realize that a disease is actually caused by a mutation that we find on a gene on our X chromosome. So hemophilia. On the X chromosome, there's a gene for blood clotting factors. If you have a wild type or normal gene, then you have normal blood clotting factors. You do not suffer from hemophilia. People that have a mutation on this gene are unable to block off any damaged blood vessels. So that means that if they bruise or cut themselves, they don't possess these protein clotting factors to stop that blockage and stop the blood flow. We call this condition hemophilia. Another X-linked condition we have is red-green color blindness. So red-green color blindness means there's a gene on the X chromosome that enables us to differentiate between red and green. People that are colorblind to it, they have a mutation in that gene so that they are unable to do so. Again, this is another gene found on the X chromosome. The next one we have right here is male pattern hair loss. So this, again, characteristic of males, less characteristic of females. So again, we're going to focus on X-linked traits. Please do not think that the Y chromosome does not contain any genes. It does. It just has very few, so we're going to focus on X. The way we use this is we show capital X and Y to represent the different chromosomes from each parent. If I tell you the phenotype of mom, you have to make sure that you're representing mom's phenotype with 2 X's because she is a biological female. And when I give you dad's phenotype, you have to make sure you're representing dad's phenotype in genotype form with an X and a Y because he will be biologically male. The alleles that we find on these are going to be represented as superscripts, much like what we did with codominance. But we're going to use the same allele depicted in Mendelian inheritance, meaning we're essentially going to go back a step to where we were using uppercase and lowercase letters to represent dominant recessive alleles. So here's how you show it. We'll look at hemophilia. So hemophilia is an X-linked condition. It's recessive. So the X chromosome, if you do not have hemophilia, it means that you are going to inherit the dominant trait right there, shown by an uppercase H. On the X chromosome, if you do have the condition for hemophilia, you're going to have a lowercase h to represent that recessive condition. We still use Y's to represent biological sex, because again, whether you're XY or XX matters when we look at X-linked traits. However, the Y does not get any superscript because the Y chromosome does not contain this gene. Therefore, it has no alleles to contribute to the genotype of the offspring. So let's try a problem. So a woman who is a carrier for hemophilia marries a man without hemophilia. The first question is, what does it mean for someone to be a carrier? Good. So if someone is a carrier, it means that they're heterozygous for a recessive condition. That means you won't actually see the condition in their phenotype, but they still possess the recessive allele and could pass it on to their offspring. So the woman, she is a carrier and she marries a man without hemophilia. So see if you can figure out, what should mom's genotype be? Good. So you should have gotten that mom is biologically female, so she should have 2 X chromosomes to indicate her biological femaleness. One of the X chromosomes carries the dominant non-hemophiliac allele indicated by a capital H, and one of mom's X chromosomes indicated it does carry the hemophiliac trait, so it has the lowercase h to represent that recessive condition. What is the male's genotype? Good. So the man is male, so he is XY. So the X chromosome, since he does not have hemophilia, should get a capital H to indicate that he does not carry that allele. And the Y chromosome gets no superscript because we have no gene there. So what I want you to do now is take the genotypes we just solved. In your notebook, create a Punnett square. You're going to fill it in just like you have it since middle school and answer the 2 questions below. So pause the video, do that now, and then come back and answer my question. So my first question is, what is the probability they will have a daughter with the disorder? Good, so you should have gotten that it is a 0% chance they will have a daughter with the disorder. We'll talk about why this is in a second. What is the probability they will have a son with the disorder? So that is a 50% chance they will have a son with the disorder. So let's look at what your Punnett square should have looked like and talk about this. So you'll notice that my parent on the top, this is my father right here. So I've separated out his alleles using Mendel's law of segregation. Dad only gets to give his X to 50% of the sperm, and he only gets to give his Y to 50% of his sperm. So that means here are his possible combinations. And again, we're going to segregate mom's alleles over here, Mendel's law of segregation. Each parent only gets to give 1 copy of their genes. So mom can either give her X with the non-hemophiliac allele, or she can give her X with the hemophiliac allele. What we need to pay attention to in our Punnett square is whether each box is indicating a male or a female offspring. So with the female question, you had to look at your 2 boxes that indicate female offspring, shown by the 2 copies of the X's. We notice that neither of them are going to show hemophilia because they both have at least one of the dominant alleles, so at least one capital H. We will have 1 female that is homozygous dominant, and we will have 1 female that's a carrier. She's heterozygous. When we look at our males, those are XY. So we notice 1 male is going to inherit his mom's dominant allele, no hemophilia, and 1 male inherits the recessive allele and will suffer from hemophilia. My last question for you is, what is the probability these people would have an offspring with hemophilia? Good, should understand that offspring does not have a male or female connotation, meaning that if you get a sex-linked question where it just asks you what's the chance they'll have a child or what's the chance they'll have an offspring, then you would look at all 4 boxes and notice it's 1 out of 4. But if it asks you about males versus females, you need to pay attention what the sex chromosomes are in each of the boxes in order to answer those questions. Go back to Google Classroom right now. I have additional practice problems for you guys on sex-linked traits, so you're going to work on those now in your notebook.